Well, that ain't it. That did her dirty. So we got a spoiler for the new Light Illusionist weapon, as you guys can see. It is a once per turn instant that costs 2 resources. Target angel attack or attack action card with Herald in its name gets Go Again. That is a far cry from just everything gets Go Again. Maybe that's for the best. I don't know. Obviously, this is significantly worse than the last Luminaris. This is the Luminaris at home, if you would. This is what we got, so let's talk about it a bit. First thing, doesn't work with auras. So, unless we get something else weird, like another weapon, or her hero text has something to do with that, the weapon game plan is just like the weapon aura game plan is just out of the picture. Maybe we sideboard into Iris, maybe we have 2 distinct different builds of Prism where there's some people are playing auras, some people are playing angels, and it's just like that's a deck building choice you get to make. I do think things like that can be interesting. I like kind of having those deck building choices that you can make. I mentioned this in my last video. This does not interact with pitch color in any way, which is generally something that the Illusionist class does. So my thinking is if it's not on this, we might see that on the hero text. Iris, I guess, didn't do that either, but that's something to kind of keep an eye out for. We may still get some sort of pitch color matters thing with the hero or potentially another weapon. The real sticking point for me with this card is that with the current cost curve of the angels that we have for the deck and the heralds, 2 resources for Go Again is not very good. And it gets worse when you think about it in the context of allies, where let's say theoretically all the rest of the allies that we get cost 2 to play, cost 2 to swing. If we want to give it Go Again, now we have to pitch 2 blues just to swing and give it Go Again and then swing with another thing. So that's like maybe not great. Maybe it's fine. But like my biggest issue there is Go Again is really only going to matter on the angels if we get to table a board of angels and we get to keep a reasonable grip of cards. We go into our opponent's round, we have a board of a couple angels, we draw up, we have our full hand. If our opponent attacks us and we want to keep the angels, we have to block. Meaning now we're down cards, so we don't have the resources to pay for our attacks on the angels and to pay for the Go Again on the angels. If they attack the angels instead, now we don't have angels on the board to give Go Again. So we got the grip, but nothing to give Go Again. Or we have the things to give Go Again, but no grip to pitch to give them Go Again. So it creates this weird scenario of like, how is this supposed to work with the current design of the angels we've seen? My thinking is that we'll probably get some other allies that are of a different cost structure, kind of like we saw with Dromai, where we got the spoilers of the majestic legendary dragons that were expensive, big, and splashy, and then we saw all the cheap stuff afterwards. I think that would make sense. Maybe we get some angels that cost 0 to attack with. Maybe they cost 2 to play or something like that. Because then that would make far more sense. Okay, now we can keep a couple of these, and if we're allowed, if we block with our whole hand, we just push 1 angel and pass the turn. We just like swing for 3 or something like that. If our opponent allows us to keep a grip, well then we're like, oh, well, I guess I'll attack with multiple of them now. So that's the only thing that really makes sense to me, unless we get something else weird. I mentioned before potentially a weapon that gives an alternate attack to your angels, kind of like Luminaris gives a way to attack with certain things. The other Luminaris, the good one. The other thing of note with this is that because it specifies Herald for the attack action cards, this does make a lot of the regular Illusionist cards much worse, like Phantasmaclasm, Fractal Replication, and Miraging Metamorph, and I think it's Phantasmal Symbiosis, the new one that we got. It does make a lot of those worse. You can still use them as chain enders, but a lot of those cards are significantly worse when used that way, other than Fractal, which obviously you want to end the chain with that one, or at least throw it after some stuff. But, like, Metamorph, you want to lead on, be like, hey, here's this thing, I'm gonna, another Prism, I'm gonna use this to be my Go Again for the round, and do you want to pop it? I'm still floating to get my action point back, so it's like, Phantasmaclasm, you'd use that to, like, see if the way is clear. One other interesting thing, though, is that because it is an instant, your opponent doesn't necessarily know if you're gonna activate it or not, so I think that can lead to some interesting like mind games with your opponent. And it does mean that also you can decide whether or not you want to give it go again based on if they pop it or not. So like you can throw a thing, and if they pop it with Phantasm, then you can just go, okay, whatever, I'll footsteps instead, and that costs one less. Same thing with extra steps, essentially. You'd probably rather your attack actually connected or got 2 cards out of them, but like that is not the world you're living in that moment. So it could lead to some interesting things where it's like, oh, maybe I flash in an aura instead or something like that. So it can lead to like weird debate your opponent type of situations. So far with this card, it does not look very good. But we are going off of very limited information. We do not know what the hero ability does. We don't know any of the new cards in the set for her other than the Light Angel, which might not even be a card that you play in her deck, let's be real. Like, it could just be like something that you do in Bolton or something like that, because it is just a light card from what we can tell from the flip side. It would be weird if it was Illusionist on one side but not Illusionist on the other. So waiting and seeing if we get a different cost structure with the rest of the Angels, and then that will really inform how good this card really is. If you guys have any thoughts on the card, I'd love to hear them down below. Anything that you're hoping that Prism gets in the new set. And other than that, thank you so much for watching.